65 years ago, Nigeria was born with high hopes. On 1st of October 1960, the flag of freedom was raised and the anthem of independence filled the air. We were called the giants of Africa. But today, 65 years later, the so-called giants are still crawling. At independence, I could imagine the faces of Zik, Awolowo and the rest of them. The future looked very, very bright. The cocoa from the west, palm oil from the east, groundnuts, pyramids from the north. Our universities looked very, very flourishing, produced some of Africa's best minds. The naira was once stronger than the dollar. Nigerians walked tall across the world, irrespective of which country they are found in. But what followed was monumental betrayal, corruption, coup, mismanagement, and greed that stole that promise that we once had. While other nations moved forward, Nigeria stood still, recycling the same cycle of failures and irresponsible political leaders. In 1960, Nigeria's GDP per capita was higher than South Korea's. Take, for instance, Singapore, which became independent just 2 years after Nigeria. They are now a global economic hub, while Nigeria, with air wealth, still imports petroleum products. We export our crude, import petroleum products, except for the recent establishment of Dangote Refinery, which is a private business establishment still facing economic challenges. Let's take a look at our crumbling economy. Nigeria is blessed with wealth. Yes, her people are poor. Over 133 million Nigerians, according to statistics, live in multi-dimensional poverty, more than the entire population of Japan. Inflation eats up salaries. The naira, once strong, now collapses every day. You take the naira to 1,700. Now you've brought it back to 1,490 something, and then you say you are doing a great job. How much was it before you came into power? I'm talking to Mr. President. Here is a bitter irony. When leaders travel the world begging for foreign investors, right here at home, investments worth billions are being destroyed. In Lagos, for instance, businesses built by the Igbo community, men and women who pour their sweat and dollars into the market, properties and shops of these people, estates owned by Igbo people, are being demolished overnight. How can we ask the world to invest in Nigeria when we cannot even protect the investments of our own people? Do you think the world is foolish? How do you aim to drive foreign investments when your own people who have investments in the country do not have their own investment protected? They are watching. These things are all over the news. We destroy the investments of a Nigerian because he is not from that region. And then you expect a foreign investor to leave his own country and come to your country to invest. Investors are very smart. They do not need you to lure them. What they need you to do is to provide enabling environments. Provide a very good judicial system. But when your judicial system is not functional, when your security sector is not functional, when your health sector is very, very bad, you do not expect foreign investors to leave their country when the economy is thriving and strong to come to your own economy and invest anything. I'll use here a case of our brother, one Maze Chukwudi, who spent over 25 years building his shop in Alaba Market. He sent 3 of his children to the university from the proceeds he made from that shop. And then one day, this particular shop gets demolished. And then the man, if not for the ingenuity of his children, is expected to return back to zero and start building again in the country where he was born. In fact, Mr. Mazi Chukwudi that I'm talking about was born and raised in Lagos State. He sent 3 of his children to the university from that business. One morning, bulldozers arrived without warning. His life's work reduced to rubbles. And then you expect a foreign investor seeing all this to come down, leave his own country, and come down here to come and then invest resources he so struggled to earn. What is the security of that investment you are luring him to come and invest in your country where investment of its own citizens are not protected? This is not just about money. It is about dignity and about broken trust. You need a lot of trust to attract a foreign investor. Our hospitals are, that one. Our hospitals are shadows of what they used to be or what they should be. Nigeria has just about 35,000 doctors for over 200 million people. One doctor for about 6,000 citizens if you do the maths. Life expectancy is around 54 years. Compare that to Japan, that is 83, or Rwanda, 69, and then you will understand what I'm talking about. Women die in childbirth every day. Families lose loved ones to illness that are easily treated elsewhere. Meanwhile, leaders still jet abroad for routine checkups, leaving the poor to suffer. And then sometimes you see them claim they have built hospitals they cannot even go for checkup. While going for these checkups, instead of telling you they are going for medical treatment, they will come out to tell you they are going to attract foreign investors or foreign investments. And then they go like an entourage. 6 to 10 of them sometimes. They spend weeks in a foreign country. In a rural town, for instance, like Denver, a young mother can go into labor. The local hospital has no electricity, no doctor, no drugs, nothing at all. She gives birth on the floor by candlelight. Neither she nor her child could survive. Is this the kind of place you want a foreign investor to come and invest? In which sector do you want that foreign investor to come and invest? If a foreign investor leaves his country, comes to your country and has ordinary malaria, and is not sure he has a hospital where he can be treated very well for this ordinary malaria, and he dies, what will become of his own foreign investment in your country? So it is not about globetrotting, looking for who will invest in your country. You have to first of all fix your country so that people will become attracted to it and then they will come and invest. You don't need to tell somebody to come and invest into a place where he knows if he comes, he will make profits. You don't need to go and beg anybody to come and invest to make profit. They are not going to share their profit with you, except paying tax. So if the place is conducive enough for them to come, they will come without you going to beg them. So you don't need to go out and travel and waste our common resources, yeah? And then tell us you're going to attract foreign investments. There's no such thing as traveling abroad to go and lure foreign investors. I've seen state governors do it in different ways, but it's all fraud and it's all fraudulent. Any governor you see doing so, any government official you see doing so, traveling abroad, saying he's going to lure foreign investment, he's only wasting time. I've never seen any of such foreign investments coming through. Are we going to talk about the rotten education sector? Education should be the ladder to progress. But in Nigeria, the ladder is broken into pieces. More than 10.5 million children are out of school, the highest number in the world. Listen to that again. More than 10.5 million children in Nigeria are out of school, and that's the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. You will say, oh, the greater number of them are from the north. Well, when they grow up, they will come and meet you here in the south. Those who make it in the university, those ones who face constant strikes, overcrowded classrooms, the bleak job prospect after graduation, and then the poor educational facilities that will meet them in school. Compare Nigeria to Finland and all other small European nations that are not even up to a state in Nigeria. Then you weep for this country that is celebrating her 65 years of independence today. As I said, compare Nigeria to Finland, where education is free and research-driven, or even Rwanda here in Africa, or because you will say it's Europe. So Rwanda has been able to rebuild her own education system after the genocide. Nigeria has the resources to do more than Rwanda, but we lack the will. We lack the leadership because our leadership recruitment process is flawed. Our leadership recruitment process is very bad. If you're going to do any kind of job, be it plumbing, welding, electrical, any kind of skill you're going to do, you are required to go for trainings. You are required to go for certifications before you are allowed to do these jobs. But if somebody wants to become a leader in Nigeria, he doesn't go through any leadership training. He just buys the ticket of the party where he is from, runs on their platform, wins the election, and suddenly becomes a leader. Some of these people end up being monumental failures because they have no preparation. They are accidental public servants. I want to borrow the words of our brother who published a book about this. I think it's Nasser El-Rufai. They are accidental public servants. Let me give you a story of Chinedu in Enugu, who is 14 years old. He dreams of becoming a medical doctor, but his school has no lab, no textbooks, and all other facilities that can facilitate his study as a science student. He studies under a street light because his house has no electrical power supply. His dream is alive, but his facilities around him are discouraging. Yet in the midst of all this, you will see young children from Anambra State going ahead to win global prizes in science. Think about it. If these children were encouraged or are encouraged today, how far will they go? If they can achieve all this in the midst of all these discouragements, how do you think they will fare if they are encouraged in any way? Are we going to start talking about the insecurity everywhere? From terrorists in the north to kidnappers in the southeast and on highways all over the nation. Insecurity has become a daily nightmare. That just a few days ago we lost our sister Son Tochukwu, who was with Arise TV because of a so-called, without an investigation, they have concluded that a robbery incident took place in her flat and then she lost her life. One very precious life gone. A sister who had the opportunity to be a UK citizen and a Nigerian citizen. She abandoned her dual citizenship, came down from here to work, and then she lost her life in that kind of brutal manner. And you expect some other people who are young people like her to return home to this insecurity where they will lose their life, where their safety is not guaranteed. And the sad situation is this, that statistically speaking, over 8,000 Nigerians were kidnapped between 2019 and 2023. That's a staggering figure. Do the math and see how many people are kidnapped a day. If 8,000 could be kidnapped between the space of 4 years, farmers are chased from their farms, children are taken from their schools, families sell all they have to pay ransom for the release of their loved ones. At 65, my dear brothers and sisters, Nigeria is still corrupt, monumentally corrupt, and cannot guarantee the safety of her own citizens. What kind of nation have we become after independence? I will share with you again the story of a father in Zamfara who awaits his daughters as they are kidnapped from school. Two years ago, these children were kidnapped 2 years ago, but he still awaits their return. He sold his farm to pay the ransom, but his children never returned. His story is not unique. It is a story of thousands of Nigerians, irrespective of where you are from. There are stories of people from Uromi in Edo State who their loved ones will be kidnapped. They will take ransom to the people who are in the forest. The person collects the ransom, rapes the wife in front of the husband, rapes the husband as well, collect the ransom and kill two of them or one of them. This is the kind of insane society we have found ourselves. I will glory up and down, spend money, say we are celebrating independence. What manner of useless independence are we celebrating when we cannot effectively address this insecurity problem? Now I have to state this very clearly here. Leadership is the real disease that Nigeria is suffering from. Other things are just symptoms. Other nations had leaders who built nations. Singapore had Lee Kuan. You remember Lee Kuan Yew. Rwanda has Paul Kagame. Ghana here, our neighbors, they have had different bold leaders that have taken bold steps. We have had people like Kwame Nkrumah, and then all kinds of leaders you can think of who took time, staged wisely to build Ghana to what it is today and what it has the potential to become in future. On the other hand, in Nigeria, leadership has become a family business. Power is handed down like inheritance, like we're in some sort of primogeniture. Every administration blames the previous one, wastes the present, and mortgages the future. I beg, make we do them. When we come out, the next administration will take care of it. I'm in my second tenure. I beg, even if he's competent, can I trust him? Let me look for a family member to give the position. This is why the economy fails, why insecurity spreads, why hospitals collapse, why education lost, why leadership also failed. Because it was handed down like an inheritance, not like a trust from the people. Because when you are in a leadership position, you should be holding it in trust for the people who handed it to you. The record we have today, it is not the people that hand it to these guys. It is just a few people sitting down in a parlor, makes a meeting, decides that we are going to give it to this man. Let's say, for instance, we are giving it to Umaru, and it becomes Umaru's own. Umaru now owes his allegiance to these few people, not the people. So we are suffering from independence, post-independence, where the people power was handed to are incapable of leadership. And yet, Nigerians refuse to understand that we are in a mess. Because if we had understood that we are in a mess, I don't think Omoyele will be the only one or among the just few voices crying that we are in a mess. We are in a total mess. And I think by the time we realize this, people like you will be at the back. Because you, who has been quiet about this, will be in the forefront. Because you will realize that they are not only mortgaging your future, but the future of your own unborn children if you are yet to have children. If you already have children, be sure that your own children will grow up and run away from this place. Because it is not conducive for them to live in. There are so many Nigerians who will not take that away from them, who are yet to give up on this nation. From tech startups in Lagos, in Enugu, in Aba, in Osisioma, you will see so many tech startups who are Nigerians, mostly our Igbo brothers. You see them in every part of the country. So when I'm mentioning that there are tech startups in everywhere, you expect to hear one Igbo name here and there. From nurses abroad who are sending money back home, contributing to our earnings, from our people in diaspora, to activists risking their lives on the street every day, Nigerians keep pushing for a better Nigeria. But resilience is not enough at all. A nation cannot rise on survival alone. We need accountability. We need justice. And we need leaders who are ready to serve the people. Not themselves and their family members. Not themselves and their side chicks. Not themselves and their stomach. Not themselves and their quest. Their insatiable quest for vanity. Not themselves and their greed. The other day, I carefully watched a program hosted in Ghana, Why Democracies Die. And I dare to say this. A nation doesn't die because it is poor. No. It dies because it accepts poor leadership. When you have leaders with wealth of experience, with a wealthy mindset, a nation, even though poor, will turn out rich. When you have a rich nation managed by people with poor mindset, who are accidental public servants, you are definitely going to wound up as a poor nation. At 65, my dear brothers and sisters, Nigeria should not just be crawling at all. We cannot keep begging outsiders for investment while crushing the investment and businesses of our own citizens. We cannot keep electing leaders who steal and smile, throw a few crumbs to people, and then they come to defend them on the internet. The future is not lost, but it will take courage, unity, and sacrifice. Nigerians must rise. The giant must stand. Because if not now, when? The giant must rise. The giant must stand. For it to be seen and known as a giant, who cannot continue to be a sleeping giant. The giant that goes to ask for help. The giant that begs people to come to its home to invest. If the giant was standing, people will come to watch it. People will come to adore it. People will come all around it to invest in her development and advancement. People will urge it forward. But the giant must first stand up. The giant cannot stand up if we continue to all fold our hands. We must first put our differences aside, because we are in all this together. We are in this decay together. We are suffering and struggling together. We must rise together as well. Thank you so much. I would have loved to say a very happy Independence Day to Nigeria, but we are not yet independent. Nigeria needs to rise up from her sleep. Thank you. In case you enjoyed watching this video, kindly press your share button. Also go through our channel. You will see many inspiring videos. I will recommend these 3 videos to you. I'm going to put the link on the bio. I recommend this video of our sister Dr. Dora Akunyili, Professor Dora Akunyili, who is now late. Her patriotism is unmatched. I will also recommend this video of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, where he talked about the founding of Nigeria. It was his last video before he passed on. And so many other great people that we have posted their videos in the past. So look through our channel. You are definitely going to see very interesting videos to watch and share. Thank you, and do have a very pleasant day. Also remember to share this video. And in case you are not yet a subscriber, subscribe to our channel. Thank you and God bless you.